Hello, it's your favorite software developer, Tyshawn. Alright, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Tyshawn, aka coldlabz on social media. So, we need to get started with game 2. From here on out, I'm gonna start showing you guys a glimpse of the video game before we even start the video. So, right here, it says click to start. I got my little fly guy in the center, got my little background that I drew up. I put a little bit more effort into it. This is my little platform it's gonna be jumping on, and these are the poles you have to be going through. So as you click, you kind of bounce around just like in the Flappy Bird as well. But what makes my game different from Flappy Bird is that every single time he passes through a pole, the actual pole speed increases. So eventually you're gonna run into it, but at the same time, when you die, you know, it has the exact same animation. You know, you turn forward, drop to the ground, take a L. So if you want to see what that looks like or what Flappy Bird even is, you just go to the internet, type in flappybird.io, and you'll be able to see it. Alright, so let's get back to what we need to get done in order to make our own version of this. If you're watching this on Udemy, more than likely, if you look inside the special access folder, you're going to find everything you need for the game too. But if not, I'm going to give you guys the dimensions so you can create your own sprite sheets and animations and make your second video game. So what you need to do is make you a game 2 folder. For myself, I already got game 2 copy, all the different type of versions of game 2 and game 1. So for me, it's going to be game 1 copy. That's the name of my folder. But as we go inside of game 1 folder for myself, if you go onto the properties of the actual character, you know, the fly man, it says that his width is 600 and his height is by 100. So the next thing we want to do is get the BG, but we changed the name to Mountain BG because it's a different game. We want to get confused or nothing. And the width for that is 800, and then the height is 600. For the next thing, the old ground, we changed the name of that as well. Now the ground is called platform, and the width of the ground is 800, and then the height is 150. And for the last thing that's going to be part of the game, you got a pole. That's something brand new. So the pole, the dimension or the width is going to be 75, and then the height is going to be 500. The next thing you're going to need to do is go to your web browser, type in phaser.io, then click on desktop and mobile HTML5 framework. It says download and get started. You click there, then you go back onto the right hand side, click there again, and then in the center of the page you see mis.js. You download that, and now you got a copy that you're going to have to place into your game 2 folder. With all this said, now we can start getting the game together. So the next thing I'm going to need you guys to do is go to your actual text editor, open that up, and then go to your file, and then go to the new folder, and go to your game 2 folder. Once you go to your game 2 folder, you should be able to see all the actual images and assets that you need to actually create this game. So inside of here, we need to go ahead and create our index.html and our game.js. In order to do that, we go to our left hand side, right click to where it says new file, and then let's type game.js, then hit enter. Next, we need to go to the left hand side again, hit new file, after right clicking, and then let's type index.html, index.html. There we go. So now we got both of those files needed for the actual game. So those of you that's been following along, we have an actual template so we don't have to actually type this out over and over. It should be in the desktop in the new folder that we made. So let's go to the desktop. Let's open up that new folder. Go to index.html. Let's double click on it. And then inside of that, we want to copy that contents and paste it into the index.html on the actual text editor. After that, go back to that same folder, click on Phaser template, and then open that up, highlight everything inside there, copy it, and then paste it into game.js. So if you haven't already put the phaser.min.js into the actual game 2 folder, now is a good time to do that. So you can pause the video for a second and then go ahead to it. But if so, you can go ahead and run a live server just to verify that this actually works. Alright, so as you see here, I get a blank screen. Now, in order to verify I got no errors, I do inspect element and then go over to the console section. So after you get to the console section, I'm gonna clear this box real quick and then hit the reload one more time. You notice it just says Phaser version 3.5, and you see no errors listed in there. So this is a good thing. You know, the screen is actually stretched out to the full length, and now we can get started with that. So the first thing we need to do is add the things inside of the preload first. So let's do this dot load dot image, then do open close. We're gonna do string mbg, comma, then let's put string mountain bg.png. The reason we're not just gonna say bg this time is because in the last game we said bg, so we wanted to like kind of make it a little bit different. So let's go to the next line. Let's hit this dot load dot image, and then put a string in there, write the word poll, then put a comma, and then put another string, put poll.png. So now we got the poll loaded into the game. The next thing we need to do is this dot load dot image, and then we're gonna do platform. That's gonna be inside of a string, then put a comma, then a string, then platform.png inside of that. And like the last game, we gotta do a sprite sheet. So we're gonna do this dot load dot sprite sheet, and we're gonna put open close, and then we're gonna put the word flyman, then put a comma, then flyman.png, and we're gonna do another comma, and then we're gonna put an object in here. So the object gonna say frame width, and then 100, comma, frame height 100. Like I said before, the frame width is the actual length of the character per frame, and the frame height is the actual character itself. So let's go back up to the g.n, and we're gonna put some pre stuff inside of the game. So let's put game over equals false, and then speed up equals -20, start equals false, jumped equals 0, and POS, we're gonna make a array. So we're gonna do 500, comma, 555, comma, 600, comma, 650, comma, and 700. So what this represents is a couple of different things. So game over, the game's gonna be actually, you know, stop moving once the game hits game over. The start button is gonna be actual start when you click down on the actual background itself. The speed up, that's how we're going to make the speed of the pose actually increment. And then the POS is going to be the actual positions of the pose. And the last thing is the jump section. So when you actually pass through the pose, and then the pose reach the, you know, the 0 position on the x-axis or beyond that, it's going to reset its position, and jump's going to equal 1 more point towards your actual score. So the score is going to be how many times you actually jump through the pose and actually survived it to be respawned opposite side of the screen. So now let's go ahead and add the background to the game, but this time the background's gonna be slightly different. We're gonna use the word bg again. So let's go down to g.create function, and then let's type bg equals this dot add dot tile, then capital sprite, and then we're gonna do open close. After that, the first parameter is still the same. So the x on the x-axis is going to be 0, and the y is going to be 0. But the next 2 parameters are going to say like how long, how tall is this actual tile sprite. The tile sprite is like how in the old video games they had the same background running over and over. We're going to kind of use that ourselves. So we're going to do 800 by 600 because that's the size of our background that we made for the mountain BG. So next put a comma and do string mbg, because up top that's what we called it. And now if you look at the game, you know, it loads up, but it's not in the correct position. And just like last time, we need to do set origin behind that, and then in the inside of that parameter put 0. The next thing we want to do is make the background interactive, so when you're clicking, the player actually like goes up again. So let's do bg.setInteractive, then open close. Under that, do bg.depth equals -2. What the depth does is make sure that whatever item that you're talking about is going to be set in a certain like Z index. Z index is like what comes before what, or what goes behind what. So this BG, we want to put it at -2, so it'd be the furthest behind everything. After that, do bg.on pointer down, then do a comma, and then do the word function, open close, and we're going to just leave it at that. So now you got an actual background on the screen. The next thing we want to do is add like some text and stuff, so we know to start the game. So we're going to do play, then capital game equals this dot add dot text, open close, and do 100 comma 0 comma, and then we're gonna add like actual words to this. And when you're doing like HTML, when you type the backslash and n, that's like how you go to a new line, where you can type br. But right now we're gonna do backslash n. So we're gonna type inside the string capital click backslash n and capital T, well 2, and then backslash n again, then the word start. So it's gonna say click to start. Now we want to actually change the font size of this actual text. So put a comma behind that. I'm gonna make a object, and we're gonna say font, then capital size, and then we're gonna just say 68px. So now it's gonna be a big word on the left hand side. It's gonna say click to start. Under that, we're gonna put the next comment for pose jumped. The pose jump is going to be the comment's going to be on the far right hand corner. So type pose and then capital jumped, then equals this dot add dot text open close 600 comma 0, because it's going to be at the very top, and then put the word pose jumped plus jumped, because remember we said the word jumped is going to be how many times it actually makes it to the far back end of the screen. And then put a comma, then font size 20px. So now if you go back to your game, you notice you got the click to start word sitting there, background in the correct position, and then the pose jumped is actually on the right hand side. So next thing I want to do is create a ghost object. Typically when I make a ghost object, you know, there's something I came up with. A ghost object is something that's hidden behind the actual, you know, game and stuff that can't be seen, but is actually interacting with the player. So in this case, this thing we're going to do is make a platform that the player can stand on. So we could just leave the ground alone and make it as if it's actually running along, like the actual tile sprite that we're going to do for this background. So you type ghost platform equals this dot physics dot add dot sprite, and do you do open close and then 800 comma 565 for the y, and then we're gonna put the word ghost platform and then dot set origin. So what's going to happen, you're gonna get like this little blank little black and green box, because there's no such thing of a ghost platform. It was completely made up. So you're going to get like, you know, nothing at all. So in our case, we're going to push this ghost platform to the background of the game so it won't be seen at all. It's going to be overlapped by something else. And then you notice the actual size of the ghost platform. If you're looking at the live server, you notice is a tiny little box, and we can actually change the size of these objects by doing set scale. So let's do ghost platform dot set, then capital scale, and then open close 100 for the X and 0.5 for the Y. So what that is saying is the actual size of the character. So imagine that you had a character that's 100 px by 100 px. If you were to change that set scale from 1 to like 100, it's going to stretch his X index way out, so he's gonna be real stressed out, and the size is gonna stay the same size though. But if you put something in a Y, you know, it's gonna make him either taller or more smaller. So in this case, we want to just stretch this little ghost background all the way out and make sure it's nice and thin, so that the actual pose and the player can stand on it. You also notice that the platform, the ghost platform itself, is falling, so we want to stop it from falling, just like we did in the last game. We want to do the ghost platform dot body dot allow, then capital gravity equals false. So now it doesn't have any gravity affecting it, but at the same time, you know, if an actual object interacts with it, it's going to knock it down. So we're going to do ghost platform dot set, then capital immovable, then open close, then true. So now nothing can move it, and now that ground's going to stay where it is the entire time. Next thing we're going to do is make the platform, the real platform, you know. So let's do platform equals this dot add dot tile, and then capital sprite, and open close. We're going to say the position of this actual ground is going to be at the 400x, then 565y, and then the actual length is going to be 800 in the x, and then 150 for the platform y position. Then put a comma, and then we're going to do platform, And then after that, put like a dot, then we're going to say set origin, and we're going to put no number in it this time. So what's going to happen is that the platform is going to be actually at the bottom of the screen and stuff. It's not going to take up the entire screen, but it's going to cover up the ghost platform. And now, in order to change that, let's go to the next line and type in platform.setScale, and this time put 1, then comma 0.5. So what that does is actually shrink the platform down to half versus being its entire size. If you go and change that from 0.5 to 1, you notice the platform is even bigger. But the reason I made the platform look like this is so when the fly is actually jumping in the air or landing or something, you know, it looks like he's actually like landing on the ground versus standing on the actual tip. Because what's happening is that the player is actually standing on the actual ghost platform, and we want that to not really be what he's standing on. We want to look as if and give the illusion that he's standing on the platform, like in TV shows and stuff. So the next thing we want to do is add the actual player to the game. So let's type flyman equals this dot physics dot add dot sprite, and then let's put him at his X position 150, his Y comma, let's put 300, and then put flyman. So now we got him in here, and he's kind of big, so let's reduce the size. And what's set size? So the next thing we're going to talk about is set size. Set size actually reduces the hitbox around the character itself. So you notice he has this big old hitbox right here. What it's going to do is shrink the hitbox but not affect the player the way set scale will. So let's do flyman dot set size, and then open close, then 75 comma 75. So now the hitbox is going to be smaller and he's going to be the exact same size. And we also need him to stop falling through the world. So let's do flyman dot set collide world bounds, and then open close and true. So now he's not going to fall through the game anymore. So the next thing we want to do is add the actual pose they want to avoid, you know. So let's do pole equals this dot physics dot add dot group, and then you want to do open close, and then we want to put an actual object inside of that. Inside the object, put the word key, and then put the word pole. That should be a string, so key and then string pole, then put a comma. We're gonna put repeat 1. So what this does, this add group thing does, it adds a whole group of actual objects that have the same properties. So now in order to get the properties of these objects, you type pose with an S. It could have been whatever you want to call it, but I'm calling it pose. So pose equals pole dot get, then capital children, and open close at the end. So now this word pose represents all the children itself entirely. So now if you go back to the game, you see the actual pose and the position, and they just drop straight down. And the reason they drop straight down because we haven't gave them actual X and Y position, so they just assume it's going to be Y for the 0 and Y for the X. So we want to loop through all of these actual poles and give them the same properties. So let's do a for loop, and what we're going to do is stop the poles from falling and make this actually come towards the player. So we're going to do for, then open close, write the word var or variable var I equals 0, then I is less than poles dot length, and then we do I plus plus. So it's going to increment for every single pole. Is going to add something to it. So in this case, you go from 0 and we're going to go for 1 because it's only repeating 1 time. So that's 2 in total. So everything we're going to do right here is going to affect both of them. So let's do pose, and then let's do the array box, then put the letter I in there because I is going to represent 0 to the number 1. Then dot body dot allow gravity equals false. So both of them is not affected by gravity now. Now do pose, the same thing, then dot body dot immovable equals true. So this time, instead of being set immovable, it's going to be immovable. So it's going to be lowercase, and then equal true. So now neither one of them can be touched. The next thing we want to do is set the origin of these pose. So pose I dot set origin open close. So now it's going to give them the default position, you know, kind of like the center of the actual picture itself. And then do pose open close, then put the number 1 in there, and then dot flip y equals true. So what we're doing here instead of just typing this over and over, we're going to just type this one time. We're going to say the same thing twice, but it's only going to do the actual action once. And then where it says flip Y, it actually takes the picture and flips it upside down. So we're going to put the flip Y equals true, and then for both of them, we're going to put pose dot depth equals -1. So this pose is going to actually be behind the ground itself. The next thing we want to do is pose I dot set velocity X, and then open close, then -300. So what that's going to do is launch these poles towards the player, and no longer will these poles drop. It will stay in position and come towards the player's location. Then we want to actually affect the pose 0 and pose 1 separately for the last two parts. So we're going to do pose 0.y equals pos. So now every time the game loads, the position of the actual pole is going to be different, because we're going to have it going through the actual thing randomly. Instead of typing math.floor.random inside of the POS box, we're going to do POS, and then we're going to do the array box, and we're going to type phaser.mav.between and do open close and 0,4. So now we're going to just choose a random position from that array box, and it's going to place it in a certain position itself. As you guys remember, the poles drop directly down, so we want the pole to actually start on the opposite side of the screen, so the player has an actual chance to try to dodge it. So let's type pose and then 0.x equals 800. Now he's on the other side of the screen. Next, let's put pose 1.y equals pose 0.y minus 650. So what that's going to do is place the pole directly above or below the actual pole, so they give you a little bit of space to go in between the two. So let's do pose 1.x equals pose 0.x. So what that does now is wherever the pose 0 is, pole 1 is going to mimic that same area and do the same thing and chase that same pole around back and forth. So now we want the actual player to stand on this ghost platform. So if you guys are watching the last video, you know that can be solved by making a collider. So we do this dot physics dot add dot collider, do open close, and then put, for the first parameter of the function, put ghost platform. The second parameter, put flyman. After that, put a comma, put this dot hit platform. That's going to be the name of our actual platform. And then put a comma, then write no, because the next function we're not going to even use, and then put the word this. Under that, we want the pole to actually interact with the flyman. So when the flyman hits the pole, something has to happen. That's the only way that Flappy Birds work, so we need to make it work the same way. So this dot physics dot add dot collider, first parameter is going to be pole, then put a comma, next put flyman, and then put a comma. And then for this one, we're gonna put this dot hit the pole, and then a comma, write the word no, and then another comma, and write the word this. So now the player can actually land on the invisible platform, and the player can actually be smacked by the pole. The next thing we want to do is give him animations. We want to make sure he's have a flap in his wing animation that I actually drew up and everything. And then after that, we want to have him animation when he gets hit. So he's gonna grow a lump on his head once he get hit. So we need to write this dot anims dot create, then open close, and then in the inside that we gotta make an object, and then write the word key, then flapping. That's what we're gonna call it. And then frames, you put this dot anims dot generate frame, which is capitalized, and numbers, which is capitalized. And then we want to refer to what is going to have these frame numbers. So the next thing is going to be string flyman, and then put a comma. We're going to start on frame 0, and then put a comma, then put N4. So now inside that object, you got to start 0, N4. After that, leave that object. Let's go make a comma on the outside of that. Let's put repeat minus equals 1, because remember, -1 is indefinite. And then write the word frame rate. Rate is going to be capitalized, and we're going to make his wings flap pretty quick. So it's going to be 20. And then write the word yo-yo true. So yo-yo basically is once it goes one direction, it does the exact same motion in the next direction. After that, let's go down to make his actual get hit animation. So let's type this create, then open close, and then after that put an actual object inside of that. Let's write the word key, and then for the key let's put the string hit, HIT, then put a comma. There's not gonna be nothing spectacular about this, it's just gonna change this facial feature. So now we're gonna write frames, and then this dot ANIMS dot generate capital frame, and then capital numbers, and then we're going to go back to the character that actually has this hit animation that's need to be played, which is going to be flyman. So put string flyman inside open close, and then put a comma, and for the object put start 5 and comma end 5. So you're going to start on 5, end on 5. You're going to have the exact same face the entire time. So now let's go back up to where we got bg.on pointer down it, and let's start filling that in so we can actually start making stuff happen. So let's do start equals true inside of bg.on pointer down. So now once the game starts, stuff's going to happen. So now let's type play game.visible equals false. So what visible means is that you can see it or you can't see it, simple as that. So now once you hit the pointer down, the play game disappears. So next you're going to type if game over equals false, pose 0 dot set velocity x, and then put open close, then speed up, and then pose 1 dot set velocity x is speed up. So it's saying as long as the game is not over, make the pose increment get faster, because every time it's going to pass through the screen is going to speed up. So we're just going to have the word speed up represent something different. So now type flyman dot set velocity y, and then negative 300. After that put flyman dot play, and then the word flapping. So now he's going to play the flapping animation once you press start. This is going to be the if statement. For the else statement, we're going to put game over equals false, speed up equals minus 200, flyman dot y equals 300, pose 0 dot x equals 800, pose 0 dot set velocity x minus 200, pose 1 dot x equals 800, flyman dot angle equals 0, then do jump equals 0. After that pose jumped dot set text pose jumped plus jumped. Alright, so let me explain all this stuff. It just sounds like you're just taking a whole bunch of notes and everything, but there's more to it than that. So what you're looking at is basically when the game ends, what's going to happen. Instead of you hitting the reset or the reload button up top over and over, when you die, you hit that ground, you click again on the screen, it resets everything's position and starts the game over. So now you see game over equal to false again, speed is equal to negative 200 like it should be, flyman.y, he's back in the center of the screen, the pose back at 800 like it was set in the beginning, and then the second pose is going to be in the same position, but yet it's going to follow the first pose, and then they're going to set the velocity of the pose, you know, to minus 200, and that minus 200 is going to drag pose 1 with pose 0, and then instead of the flyman landing directly on his face, he's going to be at the angle 0 once again, flying forward, and jumped, you know, seeing that the pose haven't passed because the game reset, it's set back to 0. So you're probably wondering, like, alright, I'm looking at the game and everything, the dude is just dropping to the ground with a big smile on his face. The reason you're seeing that is because we haven't actually called the hit platform function or the hit the pole function to play the actual flyman.play hit, you know, animation. So let's make it so we can see this happening. So let's go to the, let's go under the create, let's type g.hit the platform equals function, and then we want to do like we did in the last game, make p1 and p2 for parameter 1, parameter 2. So now in the inside of that, we're going to do if p2 equals flyman, put game over equals true, and then under that let's put flyman.play hit. So what that says is once he hits that platform, you know, he's done. You know, he's gonna make an ugly face because he got hit dead in the face, flew dead into it. Next, we want to do, what if he hit the actual pole? You know, so let's do g.hit the pole equals function, then open close curly braces, and then put game over equals true, and then flyman.play is hit just like above. So either way, once he actually hurts himself, he's dead, and you got to make the injured face. So if we go back to the game, you notice he's making an injured face and he's just landing on the ground. We want something more to happen, so we need to go ahead and start manipulating the update section for the last part of this video. So when you go down to the area where it says update, we want to start making things actually run and move like I showed you in the beginning of the video. So in the update, we want to do if start equals false, flyman.y equals 300, flyman.set velocity y is 0, pose 0 dot set velocity x, then put 0, and pose 1 dot set velocity x is 0. So what that does, if the game isn't started, they're just going to sit there, you know, wait till you click on the background, then it's going to actually start the game. And then we're going to write else after that. So everything else inside the code is going to execute once the game starts. So now we want to type else, then open close curly braces, then put if game over is equal to false, open close, then bg.tile position x plus equals 1. So what the tile position x, you know, does is that it makes that little scrolling factor that we were talking about earlier. So if we were to check that out, you're going to see the actual, you know, background actually rolling. And we're going to do the same thing for the platform. So let's do platform dot tile position x plus equals 5. And then let's check this out. So as you can see, once the game loads, you know, it looks like the actual background's moving out, the ground's moving, you know, it looks like the actual video game is slowly moving along, but at the same time, the whole complete ground stops moving, and when he hits the pole, you know, is over. But he's not taking the actual dive that we're looking for to have the actual Flappy Bird IO type feeling. So let's go back to the game and finish the rest of it. The next thing we need to do is type pose, and then, you know, the little array box, put the number 1 in there, then dot y is equal to pose 0 dot y minus 650. So like I said before, we're just making pole 1 copy pole 0 and just chase it across the entire screen to give it that illusion that it's following each other and you got to go through it. So next, let's do pose and then open close and then put 1 dot x is equal to pose 0 dot x. So now, like I said, it's chasing it. After that, we want to make another statement in the inside of that as well, because this is saying if game over is equal to false, meaning you actually can play the game, make this stuff happen. So we're going to put if pose 0 dot x is less than negative 50, open close curly braces, and then put speed up minus equals 50. So what that's going to do is actually increment the speed by 50 every time the pose actually hits negative 50 and make it go a little bit faster every time. Then let's do pose 0 dot x is equal to 850, which is going to reset it to the other side of the screen. Then pose 0 dot y equals pos. That's the position. So it's going to take a random position that's inside of the actual array on the top of the screen. We put the 500 number through 700. We're going to put a random number in there. Instead of doing math.floor.random, like I said before, we're going to do phaser.math.between and 0 through 4. So it's going to cycle through all 5 of those numbers inside of the actual array box or list if you're doing Python. And then let's do pose open close then 0 dot set velocity x, and then let's do speed up. So what's going to happen is that every time it gets reset, the speed is going to slightly increment, like I said before. And now we're going to do jump plus equals 1, which is going to give you the actual score for passing the passing between the poles and everything. So now we want to actually change the number because the jump number went up. So you do pose jump dot set text and then put the word pose jumped and then make a space, then plus jumped. So now it's going to increment every single time. So if you go back to the game and everything, you notice when you actually hit this pole or hit the ground, he dies. The poles go away and everything, but you know his death doesn't look like it's really a nice looking death. So we need to add something to that. The last thing I did to actually make him fall on his face, and I actually went and made a else statement outside of this one if statement. There's no if statement on the end of this because we're not worried about something that happens at the end of this. We're worried about how his death looks. So on the outside of that, when he dies, we want to have this else statement says else and then open close pose 0 dot set velocity 0 pose 1 dot set velocity 0, and both of these are going to be set velocity x for 0, and then flyman dot set velocity x 0. So now when he crashes, everything stops. The pole stops and he stops, the ground stops, everything stops, and now we want him to fall on his face. So now right after that you write if flyman dot angle is not equal to 90, flyman dot angle plus equals 10. So what that does is make him rotate from the 0 angle position all the way down to, you know, his face, a 90 angle, a 90-degree angle, and then, you know, that's what we're looking for. And a Flappy Bird, that's what happened to the bird when he hit his face or hit the wall. He's going down, face down. One last thing to mention, let's change the gravity on the game, because right now it's real tough to make it through that pole with the gravity being 300 the way it is. Let's put that gravity to I give it 700. You can play around with it to see how much you really want, but I'm going with 700. And make sure your debug is turned off. So put the debug to false so you can get rid of all the little hitboxes. Other than that, we're good to go. Hopefully you've been following along this entire time. You've seen how the game is created from beginning to end. Go ahead and try it out. You got your own video game. Maybe you want to erase the sprites that I created, make your own sprite sheet like in GIMP 2 like I showed in the last couple of videos, and make your own spin-off of this game, you know? And the next video I'm going to make a brand new game. I'm going to show you guys how to make a game like a whack-a-mole game. Doesn't that sound cool? Probably not, but I'm going to do it anyway because it'll take a little bit more skill set than just this generic game right here. Alright, see you in the next video. Take care.